Hi, my name is Gregg Braden. I'm speaking to you today from my office here in the beautiful high deserts of northern New Mexico in the United States. But on April 11th and 12th of this year of 2014, I'm coming to your city. I'm coming to Copenhagen, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about why I'm coming. The best minds of our time are telling us, in no uncertain terms, that you and I are now living what they call a time of extremes. Now, the extremes don't necessarily have to be about bad things or even good things for that matter, but they're big things, big changes in the world that mean big changes in our lives. The reason is because we can no longer separate the world out there from what's happening in our everyday lives. We can't separate what's happening halfway around the world with the economy or with the climate from what's happening in our own living rooms and the food that we buy for our families or the way that we create our lifestyles, our retirements, our health care. We can't separate those things anymore. The fact is that we are living a time of extremes, and our lives are changing. They're changing in ways that you and I have never seen. They're changing in ways that we're not used to. They're changing in ways that are much faster than we've been prepared to accept. Now, for me, I was trained as a scientist. And I have to tell you, I think science is good, but science does not have all the answers. A brilliant man, biologist E.O. Wilson, maybe said it best. He said that we are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. Drowning in information while starving for wisdom. And I think there's a lot of truth to what he said. We're inundated with facts and with data, but science cannot tell us how to apply those facts and that data in our lives. That's where we must develop our own wisdom and incorporate the wisdom of those who have come before us, our ancestors for the last 5,000 years, who lived through big changes in their time. They lived through climate change. They lived through very fragile economic conditions in a similar way to what we're living through right now. And they learned things in their time that we're only beginning to understand in ours. As a scientist, I can also tell you the good news is that we already have all the solutions for all the big problems in our world. The technological solutions. We already have the food, for example, to feed every mouth of every child, every man, every woman on the face of this earth. The food is not the problem, it's the thinking that doesn't allow that food, doesn't make it a priority for that food to get where it's needed. We already have the technology to create clean, green, sustainable forms of electricity and bring that power into every home of every family on the planet today that needs it. And we can do it in a way that's sustainable and create zero greenhouse gases. We already have that technology. The crisis is the thinking that has yet to make these things a priority in our lives. Now, as we look at our time of extremes, the experts are really good at telling us about the frightening tipping points of no return. You've heard them and I've heard them. The tipping points of climate, when the greenhouse gases are so great that the climate will change forever, making it impossible for us to live. Or you've heard of the tipping points of debt, the global debt, when it becomes so great that the economies fail. We all know about those things. What the experts have failed to tell us is that before you ever reach those frightening tipping points, you must pass through the turning points. The turning points, they're nature's way of creating the change so that we never have to have the suffering of the tipping points. A turning point happens when a discovery or an experience, a direct experience, when it changes the way we think about ourselves, our lives, and our relationship to the world. And it's those turning points that make the priority, bringing the technology and bringing the really solid, sustainable, common sense solutions to our lives and our world. And this is where the principles of resilience come in. I want to talk to you in Copenhagen about resilience because there's a new form of resilience that is gaining a foothold in the thinking and the way we solve our problems. It's beyond the resilience that allows us to return or bounce back to a healthy functioning after something happens, after a big hurricane or a big storm or a fire or war. It's beyond that. This is the kind of resilience that honors you and it honors me by taking into account the facts that we are living a time of extremes and a new normal is emerging. And that means that the rules have changed for your life and my life and the way that we think, the way that we create the finances for our families, for our kids going to school, for our retirement, for our future, for our savings, the way we think about jobs, the way we think about security, the way we think about careers and money itself. All of that is changing. The way we think about power and energy, it's all changing as a new normal is emerging, but nobody's told us. The media has been reluctant and in many cases resistant to even share the fact that this magnitude of change is occurring. And this is why I'm coming to Copenhagen. I want to share with you the new peer-reviewed scientific discoveries. These aren't my theories, they're not hypotheses, they're not airy-fairy ideas. This is scientific fact that changes the way you and I have been led to think about us, our relationship to our bodies and the world, and the way we've been led to solve our problems on the one hand. And on the other hand, these discoveries have yet to make it into the mainstream textbooks, classrooms, media, and thinking. And that's why it's important. I think it's very important for us to spend this time together. I'm going to spend an evening and a full day sharing through the science, multimedia program, and through direct experience. I want you to experience the resilience that allows us to change these priorities and the thinking so that we can not only survive through the difficult times, we want to do more than that. We want to thrive, and it's possible to thrive in the worst economic downturn, to thrive in the worst climate extreme that we've seen in recorded human history. We know how to do that. So for me, the key is resilience. And what the science is telling us is before we can ever have the resilience in the world, between nations, or in our communities, it begins with us personally. And probably no surprise to you, it begins in our hearts. Every beat, every heartbeat, between that beat and the next beat in your body, the unit of time between each beat, we've been conditioned to think that that time is a constant, but it's not. It varies, and it's a good thing it does, because that variability is what creates the resilience in our lives and allows us to respond to tremendous change in a positive way. As we get older, we become rigid in our thinking and we lose some of that resilience. The good news is we can regain it, we can create it again, and that's what I want to share with you through direct experience in Copenhagen. Buckminster Fuller, brilliant man, before he died, he made a statement that I think of often. And what he said is simply this. He said, you're never going to change the world by fighting the things that you don't like. I think there's a lot of truth to that. He said, if you want to create real change, build a new model. Find a way to do things that makes the old way of thinking obsolete. That's what you and I are doing right now. We are building a new world. And it's based on rock-solid science, and it's based on scientific principles of resilience that worked for our ancestors in their time. It'll work for us in ours. I've never been more hopeful and more positive about our lives, your nation, my nation, or this world. And I'm also a realist. It's going to take a lot of work to get where we're going. Khalil Gibran, the prophet, the poet, before he died, he said that work is our love made visible. I love that. Work is our love made visible. Join me in Copenhagen in April of 2014 as together we explore what our love made visible can look like in our lives and our world, create the best lives that we can for ourselves, and create a better world for all of us. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much.